You either have to have a lot of money or you have to be really creative. And
we happen to not have a lot of money.
And I bought 2 duplexes in the span of 12 months. I was really close to just selling them at a loss even.
Man, I like this way more than nursing. We are back with another episode. I'm here with Josh. This is Colin. You know us. What up?
Why do you sound like that?
I think it's funny how we've been doing this for over a year and a half and we don't have a proper intro.
We do. It's just not when it's just us.
Yeah, but even then we don't really have a proper intro. Maybe that's something we should work on. Maybe not. I think I like it. You don't know what to expect. Catch you off guard. But here we are. It's just us again. Another week, just the two of us. So apologies if you don't like us, but we here.
Like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating. We're up to 37 5-star ratings. We're really pushing for 50 about a year ago. We're almost there. Let's go.
Was it 50? Was that our goal?
That was our goal. Yeah. We had like 20 right away. Thanks, friends and family. And then trickled up to 37. Let's get to 50.
Let's do it. 2025. That's what I'm excited about in the next 12 months.
Brandon Turner has like 700. So really, like, that's the goal. Let's get there. Joe Rogan only has like 292,000.
A lot of that's probably hate.
Actually, it is. I was scrolling through all of his recent ones. They're all like 1 stars. And the fact that his overall rating is still above a 4-star, that's pretty solid.
Wow. Yeah, that's goals.
I guess when you have 292,000 ratings, you can afford a few 1 stars.
Yeah. We're not there yet, so please don't give us a 1 star. At this point, you would absolutely tank our ratings. And after the beginning to this episode, we would understand it, but we ask for grace.
Please.
Yeah.
Please, no.
So I think last week we were talking about like building out our systems and things that we did or didn't do at the beginning that we wish we would have done. And if you're getting started, you should do. But I think one of the things, and I don't know if you're moderating this one or I am, but
I like to moderate so I don't have to answer the questions.
Well, so on that note, I was going to say, so we talked about the things that we should have done from the get-go that we did not necessarily do. But I guess, first of all, what do you think things, like what gets in the way of people growing, and how did we overcome that? And how did we grow despite a lot of the stumbling along the way?
Money gets in the way of growing. And the way we got around that was by being creative. Do you want a longer answer than that?
That's it. Next question.
Well, I mean, creative finance it's kind of like a really, well, I don't know if it is anymore, but that's it. Like, really, it was a buzzword for us for a while. And honestly, I mean, I say buzzword, it wasn't even a buzzword. It was just something we had no idea was even possible. And after we've done what we've done, now we realize how powerful it is. And you either have to have a lot of money or you have to be really creative. And we happen to have been pretty creative.
We happen to not have a lot of money.
Yeah, we were forced to be creative. And I mean, like,
well, thankfully,
turns out money is like a very limited resource for certain people. And that was, it doesn't matter what your salary is. Like, if you can be creative and get properties with little to no money out of pocket, then that is typically beneficial to the investor.
Yeah. And I'd say, like, I think the opposite would be, like, if you didn't have to be creative, if you just, let's say we got to this point without being creative, we just had the money, and now we approached, like, we had this opportunity in front of us that we couldn't necessarily afford, and all of a sudden now we had to be creative, it would be this whole new thing we're trying to learn, whereas, like, we've been building this up along the way. So I think, yeah, we heard about these, like, creative finance deals and seller financing and all this stuff when we're early in our journey listening to podcasts.
It's very attractive when you hear these gurus talk about it. And some of them, I think, are lying a little bit, but not all of them.
No, I mean, and I think hearing it early on, it just sounded like this, my thought was always like, oh yeah, of course that worked for this person, but there's no way that's going to work for us. And then the first creative finance deal we did was the first mobile home park we bought, and the purchase price was $600,000. The seller carried 20%. The bank took that as the down payment. I think they leveraged another property that we owned, short term. I think it was like only $10,000 they leveraged on that property. And then we got the park with essentially no money out of pocket. We've joked before because we were supposed to be paying, I think, closing costs and appraisal fees, which was like, I think roughly like $4,000. And when we sent the check, we hadn't transferred money between our bank accounts and the check bounced. So the banker just looped it into our loan.
That's right.
And so I think the only thing we paid for on that deal was, I think, $800 worth of legal fees. And we got this park for $600,000 park for no money other than the $800 out of pocket. And on closing day, the seller wrote us a check for, I think, 28 grand plus a lawnmower because he had collected, years annual rents and whatever. So he had these prorated rents he had to give us. So it was, and the property appraised for 160,000 more than we had gotten it for. Mm-hmm. So we were going home thinking we were just, these geniuses.
Geniuses. We heard it on a podcast once, and now we've done it once. So now we're geniuses. And granted, cash flow is pretty thin for the first year because of all that money we got at closing, because those people were not paying rents because they had already paid for a whole year.
And we spent that money quick.
Oh, yeah. So fast. We went out to eat once.
Yeah. 96 ounces of queso.
That's a legitimate reference from Colin. So I was homeschooled. Let's just start there.
Hey, but first
I didn't know how much a fluid ounce was.
Small disclaimer to your parents. I don't think it was all their fault. I think a lot of this is your fault.
Maybe
not.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't know what a fluid ounce was, and we were ordering Mexican food to take home to go. And I was like, okay, I would like a large queso dip or whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, do you want, and he listed off a certain amount of ounces. And I was like, 12 ounces. That does not sound like a lot. Like, okay, let's just take the large. And he's like, oh, you want a 96 ounce?
No, it was the large was 48 ounces. And you were like, yeah, I'll take 2 of those.
Oh, that's right. In my mind, I'm thinking 48, like CC, because I think of MLCCs in the hospital. I'm like, oh, okay, that's only like this much. I was like, okay, I will take at least 2 of those.
Yeah.
My conversion in my head was
the thing is if you've ever been around the Condado family, that almost wasn't enough still, because these people
throw down some queso.
Yeah. So, anyways, but the deal we got
that back up.
Yeah. Not to mention the 2 gallons of margaritas you bought.
Yes, but that one was on purpose.
So we got that first deal. We got that $30,000 check. The deal was thin, and again, I think we've talked about this before. We were investing, and our goal was to replace our income and get out of nursing and live off our real estate portfolio, which can be done, but not when you're buying things 100% financed, because your cash flow, like Josh mentioned, is pretty tight at the beginning. And I think people always talk about, like, what's your buy box, what's your criteria, and we've never had a great criteria, but part of the reason we haven't is because we've always looked at it like, if we're buying a park for 0 money out of pocket,
or close, doesn't have to be 0, but
yeah,
but
or close, like close to, little to no money down. If it's cash flowing at all, I mean, obviously it's got to be cash flowing enough to sustain the deal, but any cash flow, once you've taken out saving for taxes, insurance, reserves, all that kind of stuff, if you're still cash flowing on top after all that, and you're getting it for little to no money down, to us, it's in our buy box, because it's like, we weren't, but it wasn't the right strategy for what we were trying to achieve. But now that we've realized that and we've shifted our strategy, that is absolutely within our buy box, because now these things in 5-10 years, once we've stabilized them, rent raises, whatever, these things are going to be cash flowing, and the returns are infinite because we had no money in them.
Right. And yeah. And we wanted to replace our salaries quickly, but we also didn't want to raise money. We wanted to maintain 100% equity, which we haven't, but we have majority equity. Like, I was going to say vast majority. That's not vast majority of equity. We still have.
We have used some investors, and that's been great. That's definitely helped us out.
You can't have all 3 of those things while getting a ton of cash flow quickly.
Right. Unless you just find some like amazing screaming deal, and then,
But
that's,
even still, those type of deals take a lot of capital to improve them typically. Like
yeah,
it's like those kind of deals require capital to
that's
improve
true.
them and get them to where they need to be. So
Yeah. But so it's been good. And I think, back to that first park we bought for little to no money down, it was like this eye-opening experience for us, and it was just a proof of concept, and having done that after having heard about it for so long just really opened up our minds to what was possible, and like just the fact that we could do it. Like, other people are doing this, we've always heard about it, but now we had actually done one ourselves, which is so much more powerful. And again, I think that goes back to the whole thing of the power of just getting in the game, just doing things. You hear about people even just managing one rental property. Once you've done it yourself, it takes away that fear and, just the mystery behind it. So that,
yeah.
that
Well,
was
and
huge
to your
for us.
point, our first property that we bought, $35,000 out of pocket, not out of pocket, $35,000 purchase price cash. That one scared me a lot more than our most recent purchase of $3.6 million. And it's just
Yeah.
because we've grown slowly, not all that slowly, but we've grown little by little, which sounds slowly. We've grown since then,
We've
is what
grown
I'm
over
trying to
time.
say.
We have grown.
We've grown over time. And yeah, I mean, this should have been a pretty terrifying purchase, but no, we've done it before. We know what to expect and how to handle it, as opposed to our first house, which was $35,000.
Yeah. And speaking of systems, like on the last episode, one of our systems now is we have better underwriting tools. And I think before we were just kind of figuring things out, and just like Josh and I would just kind of run the numbers, back of the napkin kind of thing, and then just look at each other and kind of be like, this is going to work.
Yeah,
And that was enough.
that's
And
back when we used to.
that's probably why we're so scared.
We've talked about this a lot. We used to have a lot of fun. We still have fun. It's just not nearly as much. This is back in the days when we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were foolish and having tons of fun. But you could get away with that, and it's all to your level of comfort. Because again, $35,000, had we lost that, it wouldn't have ruined us. We'd split that between Josh's family and my family.
Oh, it would have hurt. It would have hurt really bad, but it wouldn't have ruined us.
Right? Yeah, it would. And I don't know what would happen. Maybe we would have. I don't know. Had that deal just been a complete dud, maybe we would have lost some steam, and maybe we wouldn't have pursued it like we did. And so it's hard to say. I like to think that we would have kept going regardless, but I don't know. Yeah, as far as why people give up, that's another reason. Failing right off the bat.
I've only lost money in the stock market. There's a lot of people that make a ton of money in the stock market, but I failed early on and I haven't gone back to it. So, I mean, that's kind of aligns.
I think that like those setbacks do, if your first deal fails or whatever, if you lose a bunch of money on your first deal, that could definitely set somebody back and limit their growth. Or maybe it would maybe they wouldn't want to get back into it for a little while, or now they would think, oh, I need to make this much money so it doesn't hurt me so much. In our case, again, we partnered, so that helped decrease the risk, and it also helped throughout. We've had each other to kind of like through the ups and downs of this business. It's like we've had times when we kind of have to lift each other up, and I think that's been huge for us. And I know we're big advocates for partnering. And at the end of our last episode, we talked about the community we're trying to develop, and that's another thing. It's like having people kind of cheering you on, working with you, helping work things out. And that's the other thing too. Like with the creative deals that we've done, being able to work together and bounce ideas. I mean, anytime we get a deal, we'll go back and forth for sometimes months with the seller and with each other, just trying to figure out different ways to do things. And I have some ideas, and Josh will have an idea, and having the two of us bouncing ideas off each other is how we end up with a lot of these creative strategies that we've come up with. So 100%, I think it helps to have a partner of some sort, or at least somebody to bounce ideas off of. Even if you're not going to partner on a deal with somebody, just to have like somebody in your network that you can talk to, somebody that you can bounce ideas off of. Would you agree, Josh?
Then it would. Yes. Just some sort of a mastermind session with somebody who is doing something similar to what you're doing. Another real estate investor. I know in the nursing world, especially when you're early on, somebody like a mentor,
Yeah.
in healthcare and in anything, anesthesia, nursing, whatever you're doing, having a mentor just to kind of bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. And most people that are doing this kind of stuff love talking about it. I mean, I was working the other day, and somebody was recently, she was trying to sell her home, and she was trying to sell it for sale by owner, but she was kind of asking me like, well, how do you even do that? What's the process? How do you just like do the whole thing? And I was like, I just went on this like 15-minute rant about how to do it. And at the end of it, I was like sitting there, I was thinking like, man, I like this way more than nursing.
And then like 15 minutes later, you're like, wait a minute, I'm a realtor. I should try to convince her to let me list it.
Well, I thought about it, but it made sense. And, you know, it's okay. Ultimately, as much as like, I'd love to get a listing from somebody, like I can look at it from the investor side and from like the personal side. And if I had the opportunity to sell something for sale by owner and avoid real estate fees, I would absolutely do it. So I can't even be mad at her.
But do you think you could have gotten her 6% higher price if you listed it?
Yes, but time was more of her concern. So I think she had somebody that was interested in buying it now for a price that she was okay with, and that was more valuable to her than getting slightly more, but maybe it's sitting on the market for a few months or something like that. So yeah, I think like my my personal feeling is like that again, like I just like talking about this stuff. So if you have a question about something, like I'd be happy to like share my opinion, or I don't want to say expertise because I don't know that it's expertise, but just experience and any advice that I can. And then just in the real estate side of things, if somebody just then decides like, oh, I would actually like to sell it with you, then cool. But I'm not necessarily just going to hold back because you're not going to list it with me. Like, oh, you're not listing with me. Like, sorry, good luck. Better ask Google.
I bought 2 duplexes in the span of 12 months on my own. So we had been doing our own real estate thing. We hadn't really figured out how to raise capital the right way that kind of met both of our goals. And so I started buying some duplexes because I had some extra cash sitting around also. And I bought 2 duplexes in the span of 12 months. And turns out doing an Airbnb was not as easy as I thought it was going to be. Seems pretty easy on the Instagram. Turns out it was kind of difficult, and I was unprepared for it. And if I had just had a few more hours a week, that would have been fine. But I didn't. I was pretty busy at the time, and so I was ready to sell both of those duplexes at a loss. To be honest, I was sick of it. It had, and honestly, it wasn't even that much work. It was just a few weeks of a lot of work, and I was over it. I was like, I don't need this. I can make plenty of money in the hospital by myself, or not by myself, but doing anesthesia. So I was ready to sell both of them at a loss, actually. And so that would, if I was doing all of the real estate on my own, 100%, I would have quit by now. So having Colin as a partner has kept us going, kept the growth going.
And especially for you, I mean, I make decent money as a nurse in Northern California, but you're making really good money in like in Wisconsin, where your money goes a lot farther. So, and meanwhile, we've built a big portfolio, and we've
grown a ton of equity, but the cash flow is not hitting.
The cash flow has not been, and again, it's not because we're terrible at what we do. Yeah, it's because of our strategy and because our focus right now is on growth. But like as some of the frustrations come up with what we've been doing, it would be easy to just say, I could make a lot more money just going in and doing a couple extra shifts, and avoid exactly all of these headaches. Yeah, well, and I've had that same thought. I mean, I think one time I was sitting at the beach with our daughter when we were living down in Los Angeles, and we were doing property management at the time, and I got several phone calls while I was there at the beach, and I just thought to myself, man, when I was a nurse, I did 3 shifts a week. and I could have 7 days off at a time where nobody's calling me. I just clock out, I'm done. And that was amazing. And there was the temptation to just, there has been throughout the time, the temptation to just go back to that because it was very simple. I mean, it sucked when it sucked like when I was in it, and I was in the work week. And I think part of what was so tough about it was just the fact that it was like the 36 hours a week weren't that bad, but it was just this like there was there was no end in sight. It was like, this is, I'll be doing this for the next 40 years potentially. And now with what we're doing, even when I go to work, granted I'm in a new place where I actually don't mind what I'm doing. If I'm ever, have a rough day or whatever, in my mind I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm building something outside of this that will replace this. I would say in 5 years we will all have replaced our income. Maybe not you. You make a lot of money. But in
So unfortunate.
5 to 10 years, I think we will all have replaced our income, all three of us.
I think in 5 years it'll be close. If I haven't replaced it, it'll be pretty close.
Yeah. And so knowing that in the back of my head, knowing that there's just not this like no end in sight, there is something we're building outside of this. Even as much work as it is, it's been, that's very comforting to me to know that. And then on the days when I'm kind of thinking, oh, I'm done with this business stuff, I think about that, and it's like, no, yeah, this is, we're building something, and we're building something so that we're not having to do this till we're 65 or
And
70.
and that's just it. The goal is to build something that can run on its own. And granted, like we never want to be fully disconnected from it, but something that can run on its own without us being there all the time, like we have to do when we clock into the hospital.
Yeah, yeah, and some people really enjoy. I don't know. Maybe some people enjoy property management. I don't particularly enjoy property management, but I enjoy the deal flow side of it. I enjoy, finding the leads. I enjoy talking to the sellers, negotiating the deals, the creative side of it.
Thank goodness, because that's what you're good at.
Yeah, well, that's probably because I enjoy it. That's something I would never want to necessarily be in long term, because at that point, or that's something I do want to be involved in long term. But the property management was very much feeling like a job for us, for Jenna and I. But now hiring somebody into that role, it's provided a cool job for him. He's dealing with all the nonsense that we used to have to deal with, but he's getting paid and he's working from home. He has flexibility that he didn't have with his previous job.
He's good at it.
Yeah, he's good at it. Is it his dream job? Like, no, probably not. But he's got to
Maybe.
work.
Don't put those words in his mouth, Colin.
Hey, listen, Brandon, if you're listening,
Brandon, let us know.
and this is your dream job, let us know. And if it's not,
Lie to us.
we appreciate you doing what you do for us. But yeah, so that's our model, is like build this thing where it doesn't need us and we could just do the things we like to do within it.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's
Oh, we were talking about duplexes.
yeah.
So I bought those two duplexes. I was over it. I was really close to just selling them at a loss, even. Well, not necessarily at a loss, but if I sold them at the same price I bought them at, realtor fees, all that, it would have been a loss to me. I was really close to doing that. I came crawling over here to Colin, like, hey, Colin, can you manage these for me? In my mind, so I bought them pretty thin because I knew this was an appreciating area. I didn't buy them cash flow negative, but I did not buy them super positive. They were very
Just
much
you
even.
bought them just about cash flow negative.
Well, so the first one was positive. When I looped in the second one, it became even or slightly negative even. And that was the timing was just terrible, because that was at a time when I was like, oh, I'm cutting back from anesthesia. I'm just putting all my time into real estate. And my bank accounts were going down really fast. And then I had some big expenses come. That, in addition to me putting all this time into the duplexes, I was at the end of it. And I was like, Colin, hey, can you manage these at least? And in my mind, I was like, our portfolio is pretty large. Even if it's negative, our portfolio could handle it for a little while. And so when was that? January 2024, I think, when it was official, I sold them. I mean, I do air quotes because nothing was legally binding, but obviously we do a lot of business together. We have a level of trust. And so I sold them to our real estate company.
but the air quotes kind of bring us to the present day, and the
Right.
reason why we are now actually selling those duplexes. And the reason for
Yes.
that is because we never did have anything official. Like Josh formed an LLC with him and his wife. They bought the thing. They sold them to the business, air quotes again, if you're not watching. And but it was never, we never did anything official. And because we're family, because we get along great, we don't have any concerns about the situation here.
Mhm.
But had Josh been, somebody that I didn't know so well, maybe a coworker or somebody, whatever, I would 100% advise to have everything in writing, have everything laid out very clearly, because even with us, even with our great relationship, this has caused, I wouldn't even say friction, but just confusion.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was so me. So I had a decent amount of equity kind of locked up into the duplexes. And I mean, we've talked about us not communicating certain things in the past. This was one of those things that we didn't even realize that it was an issue until a little bit more recently. Like every once in a while, every few months, we'd be in a business meeting or something, and I would say, "Hey, when am I gonna get that equity back?" Um, and I mean, did I even say that? I said it a couple times, I feel like.
Well, I think what came up
And
was, I
I
think
think I had a
well, I was gonna say you had the equity in the deal, and I knew you had the equity in the deal, and Jen knew that too. But we didn't really know that there was any kind of timeline on when you wanted the equity back. And so what kept coming up was we would have some sort of distribution type event within the business, which doesn't happen all that often within
right.
our business currently. And so anytime there was going to be either a refinance, or right now we're selling another duplex, or sorry, fourplex that we bought as a partnership. And anytime one of these sales was coming up, it was like, hey, like from this sale, can I recoup some of my equity that I have in these
Yes.
duplexes?
Right. And in my mind, I had made up a story that I would get it back at the first available opportunity. And I don't think that's the same story that you
A
guys have
story
put
which he
it
never
into your
told to
head.
anyone.
I might have told Nicole,
Yes.
but I told
Which
myself that
ended
story many
right
times.
there with Nicole. I'm sure Nicole whispered it to Richard late in the night, but no, I mean it's
Our son, not another man.
yeah, yeah. I guess Richard does sound like another man taking care of your wife, but
Late in the night.
but that's not the case. Yeah, late at night, it's a baby that needs feeding late at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it kept coming up, and I think like you had told yourself that story. I had told myself the story of that money's just there, and whenever there's a refinance of that property or we sell those properties, that is when you will get your equity back. And not because I didn't want to give it to you sooner, but just because I just thought that was the arrangement. So again, having these things laid out crystal clear, and we should know better, because and we kept saying, okay, we need to come up with an official agreement for this. We need to transfer these two all day investments. We need to have this all laid out very clearly so that there's no confusion, because of how many issues we've had with this in the past. And recently we were on a
It,
call.
it was a solid amount of equity. I think if it was like 10 grand, it would have been no big deal, but it was a pretty heavy chunk that I would
Yeah, well,
like to have gotten back.
well, that's what I was gonna say. So recently we were on a call and we were talking about when something sells, and then when we're selling a fourplex right now, and then we also are set to refinance a couple properties later this year, maybe next year. And it was like, maybe when those things happen, I'll get back my equity from these duplexes. But I'm looking at it from the property management side of things, and I'm looking at it as these two duplexes fit into our portfolio. They are very thin margins, and they are most likely being supported by the rest of our portfolio. So, having not been able to take distributions over a certain amount of time, it was hard for me to think like, okay, so we're finally going to have some money coming into us, and now it's going to have to go to pay back your equity for these duplexes that aren't really doing anything for our portfolio. But they are growing in equity, but at the same time, because of our relationship, I can understand your desire to get your equity out of it. So thankfully we have that background. So it's not like anything, there's no animosity. We can just have these conversations like we are right now. And through that conversation, we decided that as much as we both believe that these two duplexes in the Green Bay area will appreciate very well in the next 5 to 10 years or however long, currently they already have, yeah. Currently they're more of a headache, and they've just kind of been cause for confusion and everything. And so we just decided, hey, let's just sell these. You get all your money back from them. You know, Jen and I have managed them for a little bit, so we'll get a cut of the equity based on our business structure, which works out great for us. Works out for Josh. He didn't have to manage them. Now he's getting some money out of them. He gets all his equity back. But it was kind of one of those decisions we made together, just knowing or like seeing the issues that it could have caused had we decided to hold on to these long term. This just seemed to be the best solution. And also we're kind of trimming the fat and getting rid of a lot of our, I think these will be the last, once we sell these two duplexes and the fourplex, we're all mobile home parks, and that's our focus now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And looking at it now, looking back, it was stupid for me to sell it to All Day Investments. But at the time, I was ready. I mean, we already went through why I was ready to be done, completely done, and just sell at a loss. So even though, like, when we sell them both, Colin and Jennifer will get a pretty, I mean, what it looks like is going to be a pretty decent chunk of cash from that. In my mind, I'm like, dang it, that's a lot. I should have held on to them. But at the time, like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was ready to sell them at a loss. So I'm grateful. The entire situation I'm grateful for, and I'm very happy to whatever we can split in the end. I'm happy to do that.
And we're obviously grateful because it's like, okay, well, that was like a business move you made, and you went out and took a risk, and then you brought them in, and it's like, yeah, like to your point, had we not taken over management, you probably would have just sold them, so you wouldn't be getting anything from them. And had we not, and we were somewhat frustrated with the situation initially because it was just kind of confusing, because we're used to acquisitions. We handle, the takeover, the tenant onboarding, utilities, all that kind of stuff. And since we weren't involved with that, it was kind of messy getting things sorted out and just getting things dialed in with, mortgages and insurance payments and all that kind of stuff. But whatever, like sweat equity, I guess. And now we're going to get a decent return from it. So we're more than happy.
Pocket.
Yeah. This is another creative finance. This is a creative finance deal.
Yeah. But so one of them we have, one of them we actually have an accepted offer. We'll be closing in less than a month. That one, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to hear numbers. I like to hear numbers. So I bought it less than 3 years ago for $260, and we sold it for $375. So that's gonna, we will, knock on wood, sell it for sell for $375. That duplex alone is going to get me all of my equity back. So then whenever the second duplex sells, then that's going to be split. I think it's going to be split 3 ways. We have to figure out the whole tax situation with those. But I think that's going to be just split 3 ways.
Maybe you could talk a little about the more confusion based around the taxes on this one.
Yeah. So like, I'm going to use air quotes again, because I sold it from me personally to All Day Investments, our real estate company, but not legally, and I did not realize there was no tax event when I sold it there, because it was air quotes sold.
Because you really didn't sell it.
Because I didn't sell them.
I mean, we basically had a handshake agreement.
Yes.
And that's
and we had intentions to do it what's called a quit claim deed.
That's the one.
Had intentions on doing that, just didn't get around to doing that. And that's where you basically just transfer the title of the property to another person without going through like anything. Like, bank didn't have to underwrite it, didn't have to do anything, realtor, nothing like that. It's just a transfer of the title from one person to another. So we had intentions of doing that, just didn't get around to it because it turns out we were pretty busy.
But had we done that, then we wouldn't have the situation we have now, where Josh is the only one. Well, I guess it's you and Nicole own the LLC that owns the properties. So when we sell these properties, there will be no tax implications for Jen and I. There's only tax implications, on the capital gains for Josh and Nicole. So again, this works out really well in our situation because of the relationship we have. But if I was somebody that maybe didn't know Josh so well, I could just be kind of shady about it and be like, well, sorry, taxes are on you, but I still need my percentage.
Or I could be like, these are my properties still. You get nothing.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of ways this can go. And that's a testament to our relationship, but also a warning to all of you. If you ever do anything, have stuff in writing, have things laid out very clearly, because this deal in any other relationship or with any other partnership could have been a nightmare. But thankfully
it was ripe for misunderstanding and confusion. And that's what we got for a little while.
Yeah. But we've tremendously improved our communication. I mean, I can't say we've tremendously improved our communication as we're talking about how bad it is, but I feel like what we've improved on is now we're able to talk things through, in a level-headed way. Whereas in the past, maybe like tempers would have flared a little bit and there would have been some, emotions involved and, complaining to our wives about each other. But
have I ever complained, Nicole, if you're listening to this, have I ever complained about Colin, or is it just Jennifer? I think it's just Jennifer.
Yeah. But, or venting, I should say. Maybe not complaining, but venting. Yeah.
And temper is not the right word, I think.
Venting. Yeah. No, we've always had a good thing. But yeah, absolutely 100%. If you're doing this with anyone, and even if you are doing it, even with family, you should have things in writing and things laid out very clearly. And not
situations like this is how families get broken.
Yeah.
But it turns out we know how to handle it.
Turns out we're stronger than most.
That's right. We like to prove people wrong. And we set this up perfectly to be able to prove people wrong.
Yeah. So it's worked out. But yeah. And then in the meantime, we've got this other fourplex for sale. I think something that's interesting is, I don't know, maybe we should do this on another episode, or we could maybe touch on it now and then go into it later. But like in the past, as we kind of both go through different stages in life, like last year, Jen and I moved up to Northern California from LA, and we talked about potentially selling this fourplex we own down there, or in Wisconsin. And at the time, I think Indy's trying to sneak in. At the time, I didn't want to sell it because we needed cash, relatively or faster than what we would have gotten from a sale. So I was more into like the refinance, because I was like, I know we can pull some money out of it. And then if we want to sell it later, we can sell it later. So that's what we did. Now we're going to sell it. And I was kind of like, oh yeah, I guess we don't really need the cash now. We could like roll it over into something else. But now it seems like Josh is in a position where he wouldn't mind having the distributions more so. So it's like, it's always like finding that like, balance of like who needs what at what point in their life. And a lot of it has to do, we're still doing things on our own personally. So it's like, it's just, it's been
all of this is still a side hustle to us. That's been really fun to navigate recently.
Yeah. Yeah. And while we're running this side hustle together, we're each, trying to run other things like separately, so it's been interesting. So communicate with your partners always. And with that,
Indy has
entered
ended the show.
Yeah, ended the podcast. Indy, say, see you next week.
See you next week.
And that's it.